Good evening, everyone, and welcome, and thank you for joining us for the She Connects online networking meetup. And tonight we're going to have a fireside chat before we get into our networking game, where I break you up into some breakout rooms and you have an opportunity to network with some people remotely. And tonight we're going to be hearing from Alisha, the founder of Provvypay, and she'll tell you a little bit more about that and what she is building in just a few moments. Before we jump in, I just want to give you a quick overview of how the evening will go. We'll have about a 15 to 20 minute fireside chat with Alisha, and she'll share a bit of her story about how she got into the industry and then the journey that she took to get to where she is now. Then we play a networking game. It's the same game. If you've ever been to any of my in-person networking events, we do the same thing. We just do it online. We break into breakout rooms, and then we kind of come back into the room and we do a little bit more networking, sharing, making sure that you've connected with people before we wrap up the evening. So who am I? For those of you that have not had a chance to meet me, my name is Danielle Marie. I am the founder of Evolver. I'll tell you a little bit about that in just a moment. I'm also the founder of All Things Blockchain and the events lead for Wodeca. And I'm going to tell you about those three organizations in just a moment. I play lots of different roles in the crypto and blockchain ecosystem, and everything I do is around education, community building, and mentoring. So Evolver, I'm not going to go too deep into what Evolver is, but we are on a mission to empower over 1 million women to confidently enter into the digital economy. And how we are going to achieve that is through our mentorship program, our education hub, and then our community events. So those are our three core pillars on how we're going to achieve our mission. We can't do it alone, so we have lots of different impact partners. As you can see on the screen, I'm not going to go through all of them. If you want to learn more about our impact partners and who is supporting our mission, you can go to the evolver.com website and learn more about them there. But this journey wouldn't be possible without our impact partners. So who is Wodeca? If you are based here in Australia, I know that we have a global audience, so I know that some of you, especially on this call, and maybe if you're watching the recording, you're not from Australia, but DECA is the Digital Economy Council of Australia, formerly known as Blockchain Australia, and it rebranded to encompass more of the digital economy. Wodeca is a working group inside of DECA, and we basically work together to kind of foster inclusion, education, and leadership, and try to help women on their journey into the Web3 ecosystem. If you're based here in Australia and you're interested in learning more about the working group, you can go ahead and scan that QR code. It will take you to the working group landing page, and there's actually a form where you can submit to be a part of the Wodeca group. Everyone is invited. You don't have to be women. We actually opened it up this year to men to be more inclusive. And so that's a little bit more about Wodeca. Who is All Things Blockchain? So All Things Blockchain is a nonprofit association that I founded back in 2020. We're a community built by the community for the community, and we have hosted over 165 events now globally. We started last year going globally. We just hosted an event at Token 49 in Singapore, and then we collaborate with lots of different partners. So we're hosting one in Bali next week as well, and I'll talk a little bit more about upcoming events shortly. So partnerships, we're always looking to partner. If there's anybody on this call, or if you know anybody that may be aligned with our mission, we're looking for scholarship partners, educational, community, and social impact partners. So feel free, you can always scan those QR codes and connect with us. The Education Hub, I'm very, very excited, is fully underway. My team has been working hard and getting the short courses in there. We have 3 courses in there for you at the moment: Crypto Trading Basics, the TradFi to DeFi course, and the Web3 Basics. All of them are free. All of our courses will always be free. And we are just, we did a pilot program earlier in the year where we delivered the Crypto Trading Basics and the Web3 Basics live. Those courses are now in there for you to study on demand. And we've just added the TradFi to DeFi. And we have a lot more courses coming because we've just partnered with a few different other sponsors who are going to be providing educational content, and those will be added in the new year. And we'll be doing lots of live, free educational events. So keep your eyes and ears open for that. I'm also excited to share that we are officially launching our mentorship scholarship program. And this is being powered by Digital Surge, Stand with Crypto, Ethical Finance, Nexa, and Earnscape. What does that mean? You have a chance to win a free scholarship if yourself or if you know somebody that is kind of looking for some guidance on their journey on how they could potentially enter in the industry and build a career or want to transition from their current career, such as I did. I went from hospitality, no technical background, no financial background, not even a university degree at that point, and I transitioned into the Web3 space. So I'm on a mission to help more women. The scholarship program is only for women and non-binary, so no men allowed in this group, but the Education Hub is open to absolutely everyone. So if you are interested in that, you can scan the QR code, you can fill out the application form, and then in the new year, we will be announcing the scholarship winners. So let's quickly talk about events before we jump into our fireside chat. So between all things blockchain and Evolver, we have a lot going on, okay? We have the Learn and Earn series that we're doing. So we've actually got one in Melbourne on Friday. If you know anybody in Melbourne, it is a lunchtime session, but if they want to come along and learn about Web3 wallets, what's the difference, how to interact, or in Bali, we'll be hosting one there as well. Alisha's got a really fun game for people to play. So please share with people, even if you're not in those regions, just sharing with people that you know that may be interested is really helpful. And then for those of you that are based in Melbourne and in Brisbane, we also have some in-person events coming up under the All Things Blockchain banner, unpacking the Australian landscape that will be more around regulation and where that's going. And then we've got our monthly ATB event in Brisbane. It's our last one of the year. So you can always join our Luma calendars. I highly recommend if you want to keep up to date with all the events that we have coming on. So that's it for me. We're going to jump into the fireside chat, but if we haven't connected and you want to connect, make sure that you go ahead and scan that QR code. Now we are going to jump into a little networking game at the end, so I'll come back to this, but we basically break into breakout rooms. I give you some questions that you can use as prompting questions, and it's really an opportunity to kind of have a speed networking session. But before we do that, we're going to jump into our fireside chat with Alisha. So Alisha, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And I'm just going to close this and move you over so I can see you and I can look at you. Alisha, thank you for joining us. And before you jump in and tell us about Provvypay and what you're doing now, can you share a little bit of when did you get into crypto and how did you get into crypto and why?
Yeah, my journey actually started through traditional entrepreneurship. I, off the bat in university, went into startup land. So at the time, I was working on a startup that essentially was trying to help First Nation Australian artists get paid for licensing their artworks. What would traditionally happen is they would paint an artwork, people buy the painting, but then that sort of, end of revenue making opportunity, right? So I was trying to educate First Nations artists to license their artwork. So all that really means licensing is just a fancy term for getting permission to use the artwork. So use the artworks on products, for example, which became really popular. And I saw it as a great way to get more people exposed to First Nations artworks and given a lot of the artworks share stories and history and culture. But a big issue was them just getting paid for licensing, because that is sort of an invisible land of, a business, say, is using an artwork, putting it on activewear leggings, and then having to account for every piece of leggings they sell that has the artwork, report that to the artist, make those payments. And given a lot of artists aren't business people traditionally, these are artists, very like creatives chasing these businesses to get paid. So I was at the time trying to solve that issue for artists because I was trying to say, hey, licensing is a great way to have more revenue streams for your artwork instead of just selling the painting. So that, you paint one thing once and it could be used on so many different products. So I was running around trying to research how to do licensing properly, legally. At the time, I was doing a law degree at university, but also just trying to help businesses make these payments in a an efficient way, essentially. And I stumbled onto blockchain's smart contracts, these contracts that are supposed to automate transactions. You can think of a vending machine as a great example of a traditional smart contract in the sense of there's no humans involved. You put some money in, and your snacks, your chips, your lollies, whatever you've ordered, candy for those in the US, comes out of the vending machine. And that vending machine is a great example of a smart contract. So I thought, oh my God, this is a much better way of facilitating this process instead of having to chase the business, get them to pay, and all of this. But I thought, I know nothing about tech, and I knew nothing about tech at the time. So my background was in e-commerce, traditional business. So I thought I want to learn more about this. And at the time, this was when blockchain was just becoming popular and more people were talking about it in crypto. So I enrolled into a fintech course that a university was offering, which went for about 6 months, taught you everything about blockchain, crypto, NFTs, fintech. Strapped myself into that, and that was sort of my entry point into blockchain. Got to know the technology, realized all the opportunities that could come from it, and haven't turned back since. But that's basically how I got into blockchain originally.
Oh, very cool. And what year was that?
This was right before the hype of NFTs. So this would have been 2021, I believe, when I did this course.
That's not that long
Yeah.
ago, considering it. And
Mm.
where was the course that you took? Was it at one of the universities in Australia?
Yeah, so I attended, it was a fintech course at Monash University in Melbourne in Australia.
Okay. I wonder if they're still offering it, if it was only six
Mm.
months.
It was all online as well. That was the best part. And they did it so that people doing work, having a job could do it in their night times. So it was from at that time, it was 3 to 6 p.m., 3 nights a week for 6 months, an accelerated boot camp. But I did find it enormously useful. And I would recommend anyone looking to educate themselves to look into those types of boot camps.
Yeah, definitely. Well,
Mm.
we're all about
Mm.
education, so education is definitely key. All right, so that's how you got into this space. And then once you started to learn about blockchain, because I find it interesting when you speak to people. Some people come in through the I want to get rich quick, and because they hear of Bitcoin or some meme coins like dog with hat. And then some people come in because they learn about the technology and they really actually genuinely want to understand the technology. And we're very focused on helping people understand the technology because I believe that in order to really understand the technology, you can't really make educated investments or educated decisions in the investments in the different types of cryptocurrencies. Once you started learning about blockchain, like did you go down that rabbit hole of playing and investing in cryptocurrency, or have you always been just kind of focused on the tech?
Yeah, once I got into it, the I was going to say the best thing about those boot camps is you're with all these other people studying as well, and like other people are great sources of information. So I was, mostly with developer guys trying to upskill in blockchain, who were super into it and talking about trading and crypto and that side of things. Because before this, I wasn't typically, into trading. I knew about stocks, but I wasn't really looking at that. I was more so trying to build startups to have a base of cash and then look at investing. So at this time, once I got into it, I did start looking at, oh, yeah, what is cryptocurrency? Oh, it's a different way of trading, but also high risk, high return. So I definitely started dabbling in the different cryptocurrencies and putting, a bit here, a bit there, and learning more about that side of things.
Well, it's also the best way to learn. I always say to my students, like, you don't have to use a lot of money, but even just a little bit, getting in there, playing what is a Web3 wallet? How do you connect it to different applications? How do you do bridges? If you really want to kind of participate in the DeFi space, the only real way to do it is by actually playing, which in order to play, you actually need to purchase some cryptocurrency, which could be considered, you investing in cryptocurrency. But it is definitely the best way to learn, but don't learn with thousands of dollars, learns with like, 50 or $100, small transactions. Okay, great. So you learned, you did this course. Now, before you tell us about Provvypay and the project and what you're focused on now, tell us a little bit about your journey in between. Like, did you get a job in Web3? Like, were you just studying it on the side? Like, how did you kind of transition from the traditional, Web2 e-commerce side into being kind of fully submersed into the Web3 space?
Mm. The more I learnt about blockchain and the Web3 space, the more I understood properly the opportunities that that space presented. So I think that was the biggest thing. Because definitely initially you look at it and you're like, whoa, this is all complex and highly, especially if you don't have a technology background. It's intimidating. Just like what you said, Danielle, I put in little amounts because, and that's a really good piece of advice because you are going to make mistakes initially, like trying anything new, like riding a bike. You will do dumb things, like forget your wallet address, password, all of that, which is why investing just a little bit is so great. But so initially, I was dabbling in it on the side of what I was doing. So at the time, I was working on in that business, the licensing business, that licensing startup. But then it evolved because of what I learned. Because then I got into smart contracts, realized all the things you could do with that. The platform I was building evolved and became a lot more sophisticated, and a lot better as well. Because at that point in time, I realized, oh my God, this like what the technology that we're building with can solve so many different issues in terms of offering more transparency behind a lot of these processes. Like for example, the problem I was looking at was platforms like Spotify, they get to decide essentially behind the scenes when to pay their artists, depending on how many times their song is played, right? So blockchain allows you to create a lot more transparency around that and automate things, and make things a lot more equitable for people. So the more I learned about it, the more the work that I was doing evolved, and the bigger startup I was able to build from that. And then my journey sort of just evolved from there into what I'm building now.
I love that evolved, just so aligned. So
Evolve
you've
her.
always been an entrepreneur, is what I'm hearing. You never like went and worked for another company. You just had the startup that you were already building, and then you just brought in the tech into the startup.
Oh, I've definitely had traditional jobs. Like a lot of entrepreneurs, and particularly myself personally, I don't come from a background where my family has money. So I've always kind of had odd jobs for sure. And random jobs. For example, I had a degree and I never really used it. I did random jobs just to bring in income, and then I worked on the side of on my startups. So, which is why I 100% believe anybody can come into this space and embrace the opportunities.
Oh, that's beautiful. All right. So before we you tell us about Provvypay, I want to hear, did you have any challenges when you kind of got started into this Web3 industry? And what were some of those challenges?
I think like maybe what a lot of people feel is it can seem very intimidating. There's so much to it, and you don't know where to start. And you don't know who the right people are to talk to, but also there are so many people talking about it, and not everyone necessarily has the most let's say the most ethical values, but also not educated as well. There was a lot of noise at the start, I think, of anything new that's being introduced. Um, and this can go for any type of technology or any type of societal change, right? Is Web3 came in and there was so many people talking about various things. So you look at it all and you're like, okay, you've got crypto here and you've got NFTs and you've got these people talking about smart contracts, and you've got these people talking about pump and dumps. There's just so much that I think what happened initially for me is overwhelm, which is why for me what I found helpful was picking an area, but also and taking my time with it as well and doing it my way. So, and that comes from like first of all, enrolling into that boot camp was really great because that's yeah, it was formalized. The teachers had great credentials. When you're trying to learn all of that yourself on the internet, it can be tricky just to sift through the noise and find people that are able to explain it properly, but are educated as well. So that I would say was a really big challenge, was just the overwhelm of learning this world. So, like anything, I think baby steps really helped with this and surrounding yourself with the right people that and then knowing it, being able to tell, oh, okay, this person analyzing people's motivations. Sometimes, you a lot of the crypto boys talking about pump and dumps and exciting projects, but are they just trying to turn a quick buck? That's a lot of that's in this space as well. Yeah, Nangi has a really good great point. Our industry really needs better UX. Just the apps and things that you interact with, and they can seem so complex as well because a lot of it is developers, these really intelligent people creating these platforms, but the everyday person that doesn't know how to use them because sometimes they make them so complex, unnecessarily complex sometimes. And then a lot of the lingo as well and the words that are used, fancy terms for everything. So all of that combined can create overwhelm. So yeah, I think that is a really big issue with the space. But again, it's kind of by going through the weeds that you learn to sift through all of it. And the best way, unfortunately, is just you need to jump in and don't feel like you need to know everything from the get-go, like all these fancy terms, because trust me, I'm sure like Danielle, you probably still stumble upon new words sometimes that you're like, what the hell is this? And you've been in this space for ages.
Oh, yes. I think I've had imposter syndrome since I've got into the industry, and I'll always have it because there's always a new term or a new trend, like now deepen and you turn around and there's just and there's a new chain and there's new terminology. Um, so I'm very much like you. I kind of thought, well, I'm just going to focus and hone in on one area, and that's for me is teaching people, the beginners, how to enter into the space because the fundamentals won't change. The fundamentals of what blockchain is and how to stay safe and how to stay secure won't change. But all the different DeFi protocols and lending and different chains and now there's deepen and all of these things that will continuously evolve, understanding the differences between the chains and what are they doing to solve the scalability issues and how can you go in and understand if a project's truly decentralized. Yeah, that takes time, but the fundamentals will never change. So I was like, okay, I can master, the basics, help onboard new people while I continuously keep learning. So I'll be a lifelong learner. But I think that the industry is way too vast and way too deep, and there's way too many verticals. So definitely, you got to kind of pick your lane, kind of go deep into that lane, and then kind of just keep everything else on a high level. And a lot of the times I will, especially when I very first got into the space and I had a lot more time and I was just on my learning journey, I would go to more like technical talks, not because I understood them, but because I was learning the terminology. I was learning the language. So then, like, when I would hear developers talk, I'd be like, and ones that I know, I'd say, okay, can you stop? Can you explain that to me like I'm five? And, and going to, and like you said something earlier, the people are around you are such a good tool of learning. And that's why tapping in, going to networking events, is a really good way of learning because the community is very welcoming that way. A lot of them are looking. You do have to be careful for the maxis or the people that have not an ethical objective. But I'd say that they're, the smaller half, especially now, but a majority of the people, at the local kind of meetups that you go to, they're there, they're genuine and they want to help. All right, before we wrap up this fireside chat, if anybody has any questions, please put them into the chat. I'm going to ask my last question to Alisha, and then anybody can put in a question, and then we'll jump into our little networking part of the session. So tell us a little about Provvypay and the problem that you're focused on solving now by using blockchain.
So my projects kind of evolved to this, but using the same technology. Provvypay is essentially trying to help commerce be more intelligent. So small to medium-sized businesses, their checkout systems, they are disconnected from their FPOS machines, and they're also disconnected from how businesses count inventory, and then again disconnected from how their accountants also see their expense sheets and all of that and actually communicate with the business. I'm essentially using blockchain, technically Hashgraph, but blockchain, to connect all those systems, and essentially trying to not rewire the current financial infrastructure, but just improve it so that so businesses actually have real-time payments and inventory data, which they desperately need. Because when they have gaps like how much stock do they have, how much cash they have on hand, that is very painful for businesses, especially because I don't know if if any of you have worked in restaurants or own restaurants. Often on a daily basis, by 2 p.m., you need to get your supplier order in. How many tomatoes do you need to sell sandwiches the next day? And you don't have that information on hand. So I'm using the technology to connect all those systems and be able to provide that really valuable information to people who own businesses so they can basically stop facing those headaches on a daily basis.
And then you have the referral, like the affiliate side of it as well,
Mhm.
because that's also
Mhm.
another thing of like, if you refer somebody to a product or a service, how do you know if you're getting paid and
Mhm.
and when you're getting paid? And a lot of the times systems are set up that it's like, okay, if you make a referral, you might need to wait until, say if you refer them to do a program and, you might have to wait until that program is completed. But then, like, how do you know that you're going to get those funds? Because you're reliant on them to actually issue you the funds. And a lot of the times you then have to, like, send an invoice, or it depends on how the system is set up. But you're also working on solving that problem as well, right?
Yes, so what Danielle's referring to is our in startup world MVP, so minimum viable product, to demonstrate to people the value of programmable payments and real-time payment splitting. So yeah, what Danielle was referring to, for example, is say you refer a friend to get her eyelashes done because you found a really good business. You refer her, she goes there, the business gets a sale, great for them, but you're the one that essentially acted as their salesperson. What do you get? So we've essentially created an app that will help you collect payment, like a percentage of that payment in real time as soon as the customer pays for that booking, which is your friend, right? So your friend goes, "Yep, I would love to get my eyelashes there," makes the order through our app, and in real time, you will get a percentage of that payment as the referrer. And then that then incentivizes you to keep referring all your friends to get their eyelashes done. So that is again just trying to demonstrate to businesses how awesome it is to have real-time payments, so cash immediately in their bank accounts, but also real-time payment splitting because so much admin is usually spent on things like that. So that's what we're trying to get rid of for businesses.
I think that's amazing. And I always do wonder that transparency of say like a lot of these exchanges, for example, or different kind of affiliate programs. And we will be launching in 2026 our referral program with Evolver and our Learn and Earn program that we're planning on launching later next year. And not only do I want the individuals that are a part of that program to feel that they can trust that that they're being paid out their commissions, but I also have always wondered that with these different exchanges that I've been referring over the years, I have no visibility over the data. All I get to see is that I have this amount of referrals, affiliates, whatever term you want to use, and every month I just get you've been issued this much. Like I have no visibility over how much that person has traded. Is it actually accurate? I have no visibility of, well, did I actually have 100 people sign up using my link and you're saying I only have 50? And not even
Mhm.
necessarily because they're trying to maliciously uh rip me off, but it could be a system error or could be a system problem, so there's lots of different ways. And so if you don't have any visibility, if it's all behind closed doors, then you have no way of going in and verifying that information. So I think it's
Mhm.
fantastic. I love what you're building. I'm super excited to continue working with you. And I'm also very excited to be hosting an event with you next week. So just a reminder to everyone,
Yes.
if you know anyone in Bali, we will be hosting an event in Canggu. We do have one question, so we'll take one question from
Mhm.
D. How do you think programmable payments will change the way people use money every day, especially for those who don't know blockchain is behind it? How does Provvypay help make that happen?
Really good question. Thank you, Daryl. I think programmable payments is going to help in a lot of different ways. First of all, what Danielle touched on is really important is the lack of transparency. Right now, if you think about it, so the Web2 world, companies are basically the arbiters of truth. Behind closed doors, they're in charge of counting, for example, how many times someone has signed up to what they're providing through Danielle's link. But Danielle actually doesn't get to see any of that. She just has to count on the fact that the company is telling her the truth, that 50 people have signed up, and that's what she's being remunerated and paid for. Blockchain is really great in that it offers transparency, which is really, really important. So with programmable payments, the fact that it's all real time and connected to a single source of truth that the company does not have control over, that is going to be very powerful for a lot of people. And in the end, it will be used in a lot of different industries. A great example, I think I mentioned before, was Spotify. Spotify, artists have to count on the fact that Spotify's systems are accurately counting how many times songs are played, and people are listening to those songs and then repaying those artists for that. So that's one aspect is transparency, creating fairness for people. Trust. You don't have to trust that Spotify is telling the truth. The other one is split payments. So again, as a business, you have a lot of different people that you're paying money to. You've got your landlord, you've got your suppliers, you have your staff. The fact that now with programmable payments, you can essentially split a single payment by a customer, say for a coffee, to various different parties, down to the farmer who provided the milk, all in real time. Again, that just creates so much more fairness, transparency, and it's not no longer up to the business of when they feel like paying. So suppliers will trust them more. The relationship will improve. That's a big one as well, that relationships will improve because of this trust. So you've got split payments, you've got transparency, you've got flexibility as well, in the sense of if you need to say, I don't know, so dynamic pricing is a big one. Right now, when you set a price, as a store, you may have that on your price tags, you may have, or online, you may have it as an online price and your customers can see that. But there's no flexibility with that. Once you set it, if you want to change it, say the price of milk suddenly goes up the next day, you need to go and manually change all of that to everywhere a customer is seeing the price of your milk. But with programmable payments, you could have it dynamic in the sense of as soon as the price of milk goes up, which is a condition, you can have it that in the smart contract, the price changes in real time so that you're never caught out as a business as well. So that flexibility can be life-saving for not just people's businesses, but consumers as well. There's a few different reasons I've listed. Hopefully, I've answered your question. In the sense of not knowing blockchain is behind it, that actually I think is a crucial element to more people adopting and getting into Web3 is I think because people were so excited about this technology initially, they overwhelmed people by trying to explain the tech. But you shouldn't actually try and explain the tech. You should just explain what good is it doing for people. They don't need to know all of the fancy architecture that you have on the back end. You can explain it, of course, but it's actually better that you're just making products that people want to use and that are doing things that are useful. And then in sense of how Provvypay is helping make that happen is yeah, we're using blockchain to provide businesses with the ability to do things like dynamic pricing, split payments, real-time payments, but also on the other end that customers are reaping the benefit of that. Like Daniela said, you're referring a business, you will get paid in real time. The business doesn't get to go, you know what, we said we were going to pay you to refer a friend to get their eyelashes done, but we changed our mind. You're essentially making it fair by having a system decide that, which doesn't have biases, it doesn't have egos like us humans. So I think there's a lot of incredible things that blockchain can accomplish in this arena.
Yeah, I agree with a lot
Uh,
of that. And I always say to people before we move on to the last question and then wrap up this fireside chat, I always say to my students that really want to understand the tech on a deep level. And I always say, do you know how the internet works? They're like, no. I'm like, me either. I was like, but we don't need to know how the internet works on a technical level, like unless you're going to go down that field, of course. But we need to know how to use it. We need to know how to connect to it. We need to know how to stay safe. Even now, more than ever, we need to know how to stay safe. Like we need to learn, how to protect ourselves. We need to know the good things and the bad things about the internet, the pros and the cons. This is the same thing kind of about blockchain. So I always use that analogy. All right, one last question and then we'll wrap it up. Any thoughts on privacy? I wonder if everyone really wants all of this data available to everyone.
So there's again, really great question, Nangi. There is a few misconceptions about blockchain. Everyone thinks because it's known as public and transparent that everyone will be able to see everything. And actually, the more you dive into blockchain, what you'll realize is there's different types of blockchains. There's things called private blockchains, permissioned blockchains. So not it doesn't necessarily mean that all of this data is going to be viewable by everybody. It really depends on what the architecture is, like what type of blockchain are people using. Definitely for things like consumers' private data, there's no chance in hell. I foresee a business being like, yeah, it's fine. We use a public blockchain and any user can log in and see anything that they want. Often what you will see is just a bunch of numbers, honestly. If you want, you can have a look at things like if you type in, I use one called Hedera Hashgraph. That's my choice of blockchain. But if you look at Ethereum, what you're really going to see is maybe wallet addresses. Um, Sometimes you won't see amounts. It really depends on how much data is available. Yeah, Nunky, in my opinion, Hedera Hashgraph is the best. I'm biased in terms of on a technical level. But essentially, it is a lot of that data is it doesn't just mean anyone can look at it. It really depends on what the setup is. And again, as a business, there's no chance in hell you're going to say, yeah, as a business, oh, everyone can see our consumers' data because no one's going to use it, right? No one's going to be like, yeah, I'm totally fine with that. And people seeing everything that I'm paying and everything like that. So privacy is normally a huge element that's considered when people are setting up this type of architecture. But of course, as a consumer, so important for you to be informed. When you do use things, you can totally look at people at companies' privacy policies and just check what are they doing with the data, who can view it. That's just something for you to think about in terms of a security consideration as well.
Yeah, and not that we're going to turn this into a tech talk because I'm very mindful of time, but I think everyone's enjoying it. Zero knowledge proofs are, and don't ask me to explain how they work on a technical level, but on a high level, basically you can share data and verify data without actually showing the data. So it's definitely a lot of chains have been incorporating zero knowledge proofs into their architecture. So that's another thing, especially around privacy. So please go and do a little bit of research on that as well. Well, Alicia, thank you so much for your time in that fireside chat, ladies. If there's any gentlemen, I don't know, you can't see on the chat. I think it might actually be all ladies on here tonight. I don't know. Oh no, we got a gentleman there. No, no, no. Okay, I was like, I wasn't sure because some of the names I'm not sure, and then I was like, I can only see ladies' faces. But good questions. I like it when the gentlemen turn up. And support because a lot of the times when they see the She Connects, I get guys all the
Mhm.
time. They're like, "Oh, is it for women only?" I'm like, "No, no, no. It's just about women connecting, supporting." But we have lots of men that attend all of our events. So thank you so much, Alicia, for sharing your insights. What we're going to do now is we are going to break into the networking game that I talked to you about. It's very, very simple. I put you into some breakout rooms. If you haven't been into a breakout room, I just go and do it randomly, and then you'll end up with like three or four of you in a room. And I'm going to pop in three questions into the chat, and each person has 3 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes. I'll leave you guys in there for about 15 minutes, and the questions are, so say if I was in the group with Alicia, I would say, Alicia, what do you do in the space? Or what do you want to do the space? If you're maybe kind of new, like what do you want to learn or do you want to transition? What support do you need and how can I help? So then she would say, oh, I'm building Provvypay, and at the moment I'm really looking to connect with businesses that maybe want to learn about blockchain. And if you have any introductions, that would be really helpful to me. Like that's just kind of an example.